Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Tiny Blue Games. My name is, of course, Csaw or Chris, and today we're talking about Final Fantasy XIV in 2019. Today's video, we're doing another dungeon walkthrough, and today we're looking at the Dzemael Darkhold. I'm super sorry if I keep pronouncing some of these things wrong, but they're weird words, so it's not just my fault. But yeah, so today we're taking a look at a new dungeon in the new zone that I explored in the past video, which is really cool. I noticed as soon as I came into the zone that there was a tremendous amount of dungeons, and I got really excited to dive into them because I've really been enjoying a lot of the creatures, and well, I figured there'd be some in the dungeons, and as it turns out, yes, there's dragons. I love dragons. It's so cool. How's it going, guys? Hopefully you're doing great. This video is being recorded on my new computer as well. The one thing I've noticed that I'm having a bit of challenges with is that I'm trying to use Premiere Pro now to do my editing and to encode the video and then upload it to YouTube. And there's a lot of things that I got used to with my old computer. Like my old computer played things worse. That the quality was worse. But I was used to the software I was using. I was used to how everything worked. There's a lot of things you have to get used to when you get a new computer. Particularly, I first had to find a software that recorded my gameplay and kept the quality pretty good. And I ended up finding MSI Afterburner that did the best quality recording for some reason, and I just went with it. So that's really good. But now I'm having a little bit of issue taking that quality of that recording and editing it and bringing it into a good quality encoded video for YouTube. So there's a little bit of loss of quality there, and I definitely noticed it a bit in the last video, and I'm actively working with my settings to find a great sort of, in the middle, because I played with some settings and I got pretty good quality, but I got this huge file size that took well over a day to upload to YouTube, and I was like, I had to abort it because it was not working at all. So we're definitely going to find something that does work. But I am traveling, so I didn't have quite enough time to sit down and find the perfect Premiere Pro settings for YouTube. That being said, if you have some experience with Premiere Pro and you know the best settings for 1080 YouTube uploads, let me know in the comments below. I'm always willing to learn. And if you were wondering, before this, I always used Windows Movie Maker on my old laptop to make videos because my old laptop could not handle Premiere Pro. It could encode about 30 seconds of footage, and then it would fail and crash throughout the encoding process. So it runs a lot smoother. It's just finding the proper settings that works and keeps things pretty. But yeah, so hopefully you guys enjoy the videos still. Just know that the settings hopefully will be getting better in the future. That all said, let's get into the gameplay footage. I've just now, thinking about the time of when this video is going to come out, realized that this video was the last time I'm going to be able to say Final Fantasy XIV in 2019, which is sad because that was such a catchy little way to start the videos. But yeah, I'm happy because 2019 was a really great year for the channel. Oh, I died. I should talk about it. I'm healing again, and I did not clear a certain dot that I probably should have. I stood really close to this dragon that just destroys you, and I died. And I also haven't talked much about the dungeon, but we're going to talk about that real quick. All this to say, 2019 was a great year for the channel. I do plan to make a video kind of summarizing what happened on the channel this year, as well as a video looking at what kind of content we want to be looking into making in the next year. So I do have those videos planned. I think it's a really great way to sort of engage with you guys and sort of give you some feedback, give me some feedback. It's something I'm excited to do. But let's talk about the dungeon. We're in a dungeon, like a legit dungeon looking thing. There's these really cool glowy crystals everywhere, which I love, and I think are like the highlight of this aesthetically. There are dragons in the dungeon. You've maybe seen a certain one that has killed me, but there's also lots of little wyverns and stuff like that, which I'm really excited about as well. But yeah, at the very start of the dungeon here, there was kind of this weird mechanic where one of the particular dragons leaps in front of you and it does enormous damage if you're close enough to him. And I kind of got caught off guard and ended up dying. There are a few dots that I have to be aware of as a healer as well. I've very much been looking at the debuffs and seeing when there's a white bar on it and making sure I dispel this specific debuff. So that was a really great tip, whoever told me that in the comments. I've always been actively scanning the bars and seeing when there is a white line and trying to get to it as quick as I can. I'm still kind of slow at what I do, because that's the other thing. I really got used to playing on my laptop, and I knew where all my keys were. I know how my key bindings work, but I have a new keyboard. I have a new, like, there's a lot of learning you have to do when you switch systems. Like, it feels great. It runs so much smoother. Playing at 144 frames per second, like, you feel it when you're playing. But there's a lot of little things that you just have to get used to whenever you switch to a different device, different layout for your keyboard and stuff like that. Like, even if it's better, it's hard to change. And I've noticed that in other games too, like Fortnite or whatever PvP games I've played. I've had some serious issues where I'll push the wrong button or my finger will go to the wrong key, and it just won't be good at all. So there's some stuff to watch out for sure. But yeah, we're grinding out. I was actually really excited that I was able to do a dungeon. I was on my bard initially when I got to the new zone, and I saw that all the dungeons were around level 44, 45, and I was, just about 40 on the bard, and I was like, oh, it's going to be a little bit of time. And then, lo and behold, I was like, oh yeah, I'm higher level on the summoner and the scholar, and I was able to hit 44 really quickly, which was great, because I was very excited to try a dungeon in the zone. I'm always excited. I think dungeons are such a great way of telling a miniature story within an instance, like within a zone. And I often think games kind of do that, design it that way. Like, you'll have one zone, and you'll have a dungeon that tells like a deeper story. You'll have all the quests on the surface, and they'll kind of lay things out a bit. They'll tell you some NPCs, and then there'll be one NPC that has maybe a bigger story related to the zone, and they'll end up maybe having a dungeon that brings you kind of more into one of the wild creatures that's more important to the actual zone, and that way you can get more of a background story as well. So I always really enjoy that. It's pretty fun. So big fan of dungeons. That's end of the day. That's what I got to say about it. One thing I did have a question about, that hopefully you guys can answer is when I was queuing in, and I always distinctly have to choose if I'm queuing in as a scholar or if I'm queuing in as a summoner or my bard. Is there no way in this game to queue like as a DPS or healer? Like, when you're queuing up, like, can you say I'll play any of these roles, like, choose whichever one would get picked first? Have I just missed that and I don't understand how to select that, or is that something you're not able to do in this game? That'd be great to find out. I love how these dungeon videos, these longer videos where I can talk with you guys, they're kind of like a reverse question and answer period, where I just ask questions that I know you'll probably answer in the comments below. So it's good. I should probably give you guys a question and answer period where I'm answering more questions. So maybe that's something I'll do in 2020. Who knows? But this has been working out for us for sure. I'm really excited for Final Fantasy XIV moving into 2020. I've kind of alluded to the fact that 2019 was quite a good year for the channel, and I don't want to give away any of the stats that we'll kind of go over in a future video, but significantly increase in viewership and subscribers, and a lot of this comes from you guys who joined the channel with Final Fantasy XIV. So and the momentum is still there for the game, particularly compared to some of the other games I play. So I definitely see Final Fantasy XIV continuing strong, and I've really I've set out to make it my mission to get to endgame at this point. Don't get me wrong, I'm super excited to play the end game, and I'm really pumped to get there on that level, but also just it's kind of a challenge. It's quite the journey to get to end game in Final Fantasy XIV for the first time, and I'm excited to know that, because I also think even if you were someone who wanted to try out Final Fantasy XIV as an MMO, and you wanted to see if it's one that you'd be interested in, it's almost impossible to make a decision about an MMO without having played the end game, because so much of a lot of games comes from the end game experience, both negative and positive. Games like World of Warcraft and stuff like that, back in the day, people used to say the game doesn't start until the very end, which I have my own feelings about, but there is a lot of content that you're not going to see until you do get to the end of the game. So definitely, I think it's almost impossible to form an opinion about a game without having experienced what that end game looks like. But yeah, so I'm excited to do that. Hopefully, I would be shocked if we don't achieve that in 2020. I think I would set some sort of new record for this game. Even people who think my leveling progress is abysmally slow, I think you can accept that I'll probably hit it sometime in the next year. It's more about bursty. I sometimes don't level for quite a while, and then I'll play a whole bunch for a week, and I'll get quite a few levels. For instance, I'm going to be away for a while, the next little while, and I won't be playing. But then I'll come back, and I'll probably be super pumped and tear through this new zone, which it's an interesting situation. It's definitely, some days it must seem like I don't progress at all, and then other times you come on and I'm oh, I'm here now. So we'll see. Some other things, I guess I'm giving away some things that I want to see in the future, but I'm definitely, a lot of people have said that they want to see kind of summary recaps of the story and my thoughts on it. And at the moment, I think the best way to do that is kind of doing a summary discussion of the entire chunk of a story. So once we finish A Realm Reborn and we're about to start the next expansion, we'll probably do a debrief of how I felt about the story, what I liked, what I didn't like, what I'm excited about to see in the future, and then we'll do that for the other expansions as we head towards Shadowbringers, and finally play it. It's interesting that when I first started making videos about Final Fantasy XIV, I talked about Shadowbringers so much because it's the title that brought me in, and technically it's what I purchased. But I'm so far away still from it that I haven't really engaged with Shadowbringers on any meaningful level. So it's a particularly interesting situation that way, I think. But that's not an abnormal thing. It makes sense that you go through the older content before you get to the new content. I think Final Fantasy XIV does it in a very forceful manner, which is both good and bad. But we'll see. This is a boss fight that I really, really enjoyed. I love these telegraphs that make you have to keep moving and sort of keep everyone topped up. It was a really exciting fight that just kept you on your toes. In particular, I think it was just really, really fun when I would have to stop casting because I was about to get hit by something. The other thing that's really great is on number 5, and I forget the name of the skill. I have my first AoE heal that I can just cast over and over again. And it's great. Like my healing kit for the Scholar definitely feels like it's more robust now. I have some heals over time, I have my pet heal, I have some shielding, I have some AoE healing, I have a single target heal. I have quite a set of things to get different jobs done. And that's definitely when I feel like a healer is really coming into its own, because it instead of just spamming the one heal skill, which I did for the first few dungeons on my healer, I'm now at a point where I actually, like, I take a second and I'm like, do I want to use this heal or do I want to use that heal? So it's a pretty fun way to actually have meaningful decisions. The other nice thing about the dungeon is the crystals that explode. I've talked about this in a few Final Fantasy XIV dungeons, and they actually have this in quite a few dungeons. From what I've realized now, is that they have a lot of environmental danger. Like sometimes we have the poisonous floor, sometimes we have different traps. In this situation, if you are in the crystals when they blow up, they do quite a bit amount of damage to you, which makes sense because they give you quite a big telegraph and time to get out. So there's a fair trade-off there. But you have to be careful, especially when there is multiple crystals and you're sort of dancing around fighting at the same time. It can become quite the affair, and I definitely get hit by quite a few crystals in the dungeon as well. So it's something to watch out for. But I do like it when dungeons add that element of danger, which I think makes so much sense, because in the real world, going into these spooky lairs that monsters live in, it's probably going to be filled with booby traps and things that are harmful to normal people, right? It makes sense. So I'm quite a fan. I don't know if I'm overthinking the crystal situation, but I definitely like it. You can see here particularly we're trying to deactivate a what's it called, the Magitech field, and we have to interact with a specific sort of area, and you deactivate it by interacting with the sort of these green areas that you can see us standing with here, which are obviously in the crystals as well. So there's a bit of a risk that you have to take to get in there and actually get hit by the crystal to get the green thing. So it's a pretty cool way of making the actual ground more terrifying and difficult to work with. So I really enjoy that. And from a cosmetic appearance, I really enjoy glowy rocks. That's a glimpse into my childhood. I had a little rock collection with different sparkly glowy rocks. They didn't glow because I didn't, as a kid, didn't have some sort of magical crystal that I found. But in my fantasy worlds, I do like rocks that glow. So there we go. This fits right in. But yeah, it's been a very enjoyable time being a healer. I think it's something that's really nice to have the option to switch to, specifically since I find myself questing as a DPS quite a bit. It's nice to switch things up and then go as the healer in the dungeon. The primary issue of this is that my Scholar Summoner set is quite a bit higher than my Bard set, because the amount of experience you gain just by running even a specific queued dungeon, it's quite a lot of experience, and tremendous amount of experience if you do the random leveling roulette and get a dungeon. Like it's quite a good way to level. I'm just definitely not in a situation where leveling is at all the main focus. It's still been the main scenario quest for quite a while now. Now, this guy is super cool. Like, you have a dragon, and dragons are super cool as well. And the one thing dragons don't really have is weapons, right? Because they are the weapon. But hey, this guy gets a weapon and is a dragon. He, is the coolest looking badass I've ever seen in quite a while. Like, look at those blades. And just swirls them around. It took me a really long time to find out that is a whirlwind type attack that I can't really get in the way of and be too close to, but we do figure it out. And there's some very obvious mechanics that I really enjoy here. Particularly, there's actual a target you have to switch to, and then he'll focus target one party member who has to kind of kite the attacks away from people. I'm doing kind of a bad job at it right now because I'm kind of like lining them up. But I was also DPSing as the healer, so I was helping a bit. But it's a really cool mix of attacks, and then the whirlwind that you have to get away from. So what I like about the attacks particularly is that they're fairly obvious once you've seen them a couple times. Like the telegraph, don't stand in it. The whirlwind, even as someone like myself, I figured out, hey, it does damage when he spins and I'm close to him, so I should get away. And then this sort of corruption chain that he does between the crystal and himself, it obviously looks like he's gaining power from it, so killing it's a pretty good decision too, I'd say. So I really enjoy the encounter in general. I think it's a great way to finish off the dungeon. I think the dungeon itself is excellent. I really, really enjoyed just sort of the cave, the crystals. I've talked about the crystals so much. And then the type of monsters, the dragons. Not only do I love dragons, but it definitely felt like a lot of these enemies looked very different than enemies I've been fighting in previous dungeons, where some of them are repeats, and I think that's something that's just typical of MMOs, is to have some filler monsters that you're going to see once in a while. But at the moment, at least, these guys are new. I can see them reappearing in further dungeons for sure, which I think is fine. Oh, and then there was also this kind of chaos mode at the end where he is able to use several different attacks, and it kind of feels like you're going to run out of floor space eventually, which I always love in raids. It's something that WoW does quite a bit in the raids, is that they have the floor that will slowly be taken up by more goop, and you have to kill it before you have no more places to put the goop, right? So I really enjoy all of this. But yeah, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you have a great holiday and a great end to 2019. I look forward to making more content and being there with you in 2020. Have a great rest of your day.